Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you guys doing today? All right. Well, we're about to get started. All right. My name is Vernita Atkins. I am the manager coordinator of the Louisiana State University Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory Physics and Astronomy Demos Program, known as LOPAD. And we, the staff of LOPAD, would like to welcome you, the schools, our fellow educators, and students here that are here in the present and virtually to our program. Our program strives to bring free physics demonstrations and other activities to middle school and high schools throughout Louisiana, as well as highlight disciplines and careers in physics. Today, you will hear from someone who has chosen the career path of physics and has brought his own unique perspective to the field. I will now yield the floor to our LSU's own gravitational wave physicist, Dr. Gabrielle Gonzalez, to introduce our guest speaker. Thank you.
Hello. It's very, very nice to see you all here, excited about to listen to the music of physics. So let me introduce you our speaker today. He is a professor of physics in Brown University. He's a where he is working now as a faculty member. He was a postdoc following his career at Imperial College in London and at the Stanford University Linear Acceleration Center. Accelerator, that's SLAC, you might have heard about that. He received many, many awards. Some of those were the Edward Boucher Award from the American Physical Society and the National Medal for the Natural Sciences from Trinidad and Tobago, where he's from. More interestingly, he's the author of a book called The Jazz of Physics, the secret link between music and the structure of the universe. Although now he's going to talk about from hip hop to the cosmos, not just jazz. More recently, in 2021, he wrote another book, The Fear of a Black Universe, an outsider's guide to the future of physics. And I like that a lot. And something that you don't hear very often from physicists is that he is into music, not just in writing books. He was the composer and co-producer of an electronic jazz album, Here Comes Now, and an ambient music album, The Hidden Code with DJ Spooky. So he's going to tell you a lot about physics and the cosmos, and from the hip hop to the cosmos. Professor Alexander, thank you.
Okay, I know. Feel free to laugh. I know y'all like my outfit, right? It's kind of okay. I know. For the first time, what we're gonna do is establish the Baton Rouge to Bronx connection, right? I'm wearing my Bronx t-shirt here. This is 6 train. I used to take this train a lot from the Bronx to Brooklyn. As we're setting up things here, let me say it's really awesome, a great pleasure to be here in Baton Rouge. I have personal connections to Baton Rouge, and in fact, my last book, Fear of a Black Universe, I wrote much of that book sitting outside in the backyard of some house that I rented in Baton Rouge, coincidentally. And that book has now been translated in about, 8 languages, and it's all over the place. So let's get on with my talk, unless y'all don't want to hear the talk. Here's an interesting thing I learned, though. This is a side thing, right? In Baton Rouge, I notice that people say y'all a lot. Is that true? But we say that in the Bronx, too. I mean, when I came to Baton Rouge, I was like, no, we own that. We say y'all, too. What's up, y'all? Right? Do y'all do that? Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, so let's begin. Let's begin. So you all might wonder why this physicist is here talking to you about from hip hop to the cosmos, and I'm here to tell you that story. Okay? And I'm also here to tell you a part of the story of hip hop that you didn't really learn. Okay? So there's a lot of things you learn about hip hop. There's some amazing hip hop artists that came from this area. Somebody name one of your favorite hip hop artists. See, I knew it. Okay. All right. So when I was young, growing up, okay, I wanted to be. So I'm old. I'm 50 something. I'm 50 years old. Okay, I'm old. So that means that I grew up in the 80s in the Bronx, and I love music. I love hip-hop music. I love jazz music. Yes, I know jazz comes from New Orleans, right down the street. And when I was younger, I was wondering whether I could become a scientist. Definitely becoming a musician was easy for me, was because everybody around me was involved in music. And being a scientist was the part where I looked around and I said, wait a minute, I don't really see any scientists out there that look like me. Back then, Neil deGrasse Tyson did not exist, okay? Because I know when you look on TV, he's all over the place, and he's amazing. But back when I was young, there was no one that looked like me that was scientists, so I assumed that maybe we couldn't do science. So I want to tell you a story of how I became a scientist, actually. This is a picture of my high school in the Bronx, New York. This is DeWitt Clinton High School. It housed 6,000 students. It was the second largest high school in New York City. There's a picture of me with my mother, my younger brother, Nolan, who also became a freestyle rapper, my dad. And that's me there with my African medallion. That was back in 1989. Back then, wearing African medallions was a thing because we had like hip-hop groups like De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest and Public Enemy, and that was a thing. So when I was growing up in the Bronx, in my neighborhood, I had a newspaper route. When I was like 9 years old, I used to go and deliver newspapers. And on my newspaper route, there were certain friends that I would visit that lived in the apartment buildings on the route. And one guy, that guy right here, he had a bass guitar, and he had his father's record collection. And we used to listen to his father's record collection, and he used to jam on the bass, and I used to bring my sax from time to time. I sucked. I didn't know how to play the sax too well back then. All right? But the point, though, we were playing. We were experiencing music, making music together. All right. So this gentleman now became the great hip-hop producer, Vinny Idol, who produced The Lox, people like Busta Rhymes and Jada Kiss, and I mean, you name it. He's a pretty famous hip-hop producer. This other gentleman saved his money up as well. He lived across the street from me, and his name is Richard. And so Richard saved his money up in the paper route to buy a drum machine. Now, a drum machine back then this is back like 1986, was unheard of. Like, why does this fool want to buy a drum machine? Like, who cares about a drum machine? I was saying to myself. So he can have his own parties, and he can make money by making his own beats. At age 15, he makes a phone call to Puff Daddy, said, I'm the greatest beat maker in the world. And Puff Daddy's like, who are you? Come to my studio. And Puff Daddy said, actually, you're horrible, but I like your energy, kid. We'll teach you how to make beats. He ends up producing Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur. That's Young Lord, okay? So this is the environment that I grew up in, okay? This is, you probably see, this is Strong City Records is a studio. I want to talk a little bit about that studio. But before I talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about what was really going on at my high school. Back then, we didn't refer hip-hop or rap music had another word, and this was called drop-in science or supreme mathematics. It was a way of life, all right? And so, as an example, let's say I was cutting class, if I would try to cut, not that I was cutting class or anything, I'm just saying, let's just say if I were to cut class, there would, every now and then, a bunch of big dudes that would show up, and they call themselves the 5%ers. And you did not want to cross these fellas. And they would come up to you and say, yo, what's the knowledge? What's the science? To us young guys who were cutting class. And if you didn't drop some knowledge on them, you didn't want to, you better, just drop some knowledge, okay? Just make sure you drop some knowledge. And then they would go and say, listen, you better get off the streets and get back to school. If I see you back here, you're going to have to deal with me. And then it would go off saying, you know, how, so the point here is that the 5%ers believed in this thing, that wisdom, knowledge, understanding, cultural freedom, power, refinement, equality. They refer to each other as gods. So when they said, what's the knowledge, God? What's up, God? They would refer to each other as God, as a recognition of the God within. Now, these were the toughest people on the street. So how many of you have heard about the group, the Wu-Tang Clan? Jay-Z. These are all 5%ers. This is what they grew up with. See, this is a part of hip-hop that we didn't preach too much in the media. Build or destroy and manifest. That's the power of words. Born. Let your knowledge be born. The nature of the cipher, the circle, the passage of information, how information is shared, or if you're involved in a freestyle rap session, you pass a cipher. Many of you have heard these terms before. So, the point I'm just going to try to make here is that in my quest to become a scientist, it turned out that I found the scientists in the hip-hop artists. And I want to say a little bit about that. So this was one of the first hip-hop groups back in 1987. They're called the Ultramagnetic MCs. And they actually went to my high school, right? Now, my high school had 6,000 students, so I didn't really know these guys, but we knew of them. And they rose to fame. So I want to talk a little bit about Ultramagnetic MCs, because it gives you a sense of like what the most sort of, the same way y'all have like famous rappers that you listen to and everybody knows about. In my time, and by the way, this is a time where hip hop was only in the Bronx, right? It didn't leave yet. I mean, Queensbridge, Brooklyn, okay? You probably heard about people like Nas and Rakim. They used to come up to the Bronx. But the Ultramagnetic MCs, they were pioneers. So in hip hop music and beat production, which I'll talk about today, right? Said G, who was one of the Ultramagnetic MCs, was literally a scientific genius. Said G, one of the things that I would like you all to understand is that what makes hip-hop really unique is that the culture were amongst the first, according to certain technologists, to embrace technology in the music, the highest forms of technology, such as digital sampling. Also, figuring out how to use electronic digital samplers and manipulate it to create new sounds, create new music. So Said G was able to, I'll talk about this in a second, he was able to take digital sampling, he worked in his basement in the projects, and he called it the lab, and he basically, he likened himself to being a scientist, okay? And he scientifically manipulated these beats and figured out how to chop the samples up. You would sample a sound from a record, and he took that sound pattern, chopped it up, and moved it around to create new beats. So many people who use music software, production software to make your beats, like Logic and Pro Tools and Ableton Live, that idea is encoded and programmed into these software right now. So it was really a work of genius. And I want to, so this is the Ultramagnetic MCs, and notice that who can see the transcript of recording on? And I need that off. Oh, for some reason. So they refer to themselves as brainiac scientists. And let's listen to some of the lyrics, okay? Now this is old school, but things come in circle. The beats y'all might think, I see some of y'all looking at me, the beats y'all think is corny are gonna come back to be hot beats. Trust me on that. You're like, Professor Alexander is sounding so ghetto. So, okay. I teach the same way too. All right, let's listen to some of this. Hopefully the sound will come on. How we doing with sound? Listen to the lyrics.
Well, I'm the mellow brainiac, build the molecules on my SP12, my percussion will enthusiastically propel like a power dump truck, pumping heavy steam into solid iron pipes, releasing octane through a sonic oil tank. Fuel will ignite, sending blood pressure above the brain level, increasing mental speed at a height to excel, changing different gears left to right. I'm rolling, hauling MCs that are whack cross country straight to.
Now, when you listen to this, I want you to understand that this is the first time hip-hop is being created. All the hip-hop you listen to now, these are the people that invented it. Nobody was doing this. So you have to listen to it from that perspective, right? This music that is now taking over that's all over the planet. That's what you listen to some of the originators. And what they were rapping about was scientific concepts. That's what made them hard, right? What made them hard was they were able to manipulate mental imagery and words, right? Especially in battle rap and especially in freestyle rap. That's what made you tough. And that was a big part of the culture.
We are opening the magnetic.
All right. Let's see if I can. So this is another from Set G. Notice that he is, like, for example, you know, let me just want to get to say, yeah, the proper use of speech as I teach things physical, change must be rearranged, passing data of a mode, choosing a code. You understand, in 1987, nobody had a computer in the Bronx. So the fact that he is talking about data and code and, you know, making his rhyme like hidden codes. And the idea of a hidden code is also very interesting. Because when we think about like the technology, so this was probably the key piece of technology. This was the Akai MP3 2000 that people like Dr. Dre made most of his hits from. What is behind that? Well, it's a digital sampler. It takes a waveform, like a sound wave, and it digitizes it. And the understanding and the ability to manipulate that, right? And the interplay between knowing how to manipulate sounds, how to make the best sounds, how to make the crowd move is also a science. You can't have one without the other. And so people like Dr. Dre and Jay Dilla understood this very well. Jay Dilla was another genius that basically took the digital sampler and turned it into a completely new instrument. All right, how many of you all know about the album called Donuts? Check it out. Okay. How about the Far Side? Far Side is old school, but, right, check out the Far Side. All right? So, this was a place. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Up the street from me, my friend Richard and Randy, young Vinny Idol, they took me to, they said, hey, Stephon, we're forming a rap group. Would you like to join? And I'm 17 at the time. I'm like, but I don't know how to rap. They're like, don't worry, man, you're a nerd. You know, we can make good use out of you. I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, how are they going to make use out of me? Like, I played the sax, and so they were like, bring your sax along into the lab. They called it the lab. The lab was a recording studio up about a mile away from where I lived, and there was a person named DJ Jazzy J. Now, again, I'm giving you information, so your job is to do research. I want you to research who DJ Jazzy J is, and when you see the names of the people that's behind Jazzy J, then of course you'll be like, wow. So back then, but DJ Jazzy J and a guy named Rocky Bucano, they had this studio. And the studio was a place where the hip-hop artists would go and work on their lyrics, and Jazzy J would be working on his beats and that kind of stuff. But it also was a place that young people like myself, instead of hanging out in the streets and getting in trouble, we could come and, just hang out. And it was there that I started to watch DJ Jazzy J play around with the sampler and figure out new ways of plugging in the electronics and sampling to make these hits, like major hits, classic hits in hip hop, happen in the studio. I was just one of these young people that was just hanging out there. But that started getting me thinking about what's behind the sampler? How does it work? And that was the first time I started thinking about physics. Because to understand how the sampler works, or even make a better sampler, right, then you have to understand what's going on with the electrons and what's going on with this, how does a sound wave turn into an electrical signal, and yada, yada, yada. And then I got hooked. I decided that I wanted to become a physicist, but then this rap group that I was supposedly belonging to signed a contract, and they were about to go on tour. And they told me, you need to go to college. You need to go to college, and then go as far as you can, and when you're done, come back to the Bronx and give us the knowledge. And of course, my mother said, you better go to college, otherwise you have to deal with me. And I went to college, okay? So this is probably one of the greatest hip hop artists. Some people say the greatest, the GOAT. This is Rakim Allah. And listen to one of his lines from one of the greatest, probably classic hip hop songs ever, My Melody. My melody's a code the very next episode. Has my mic off in the store and ready to explode. I keep my mic at Fahrenheit, freeze MCs to make them colder. My listener system is kicking like solar. Now, the thing that makes Rakim a genius, like a genius rapper, is that a lot of great hip-hop artists and poets, there are hidden codes embedded in their words. It turns out what Rakim was really talking about, he was likening himself to one of the most magnanimous astrophysical phenomenon. So when you look at a galaxy, our Milky Way, for example, is made up of the order of 500 billion stars like our own sun. Our sun is a typical star like all the other stars out there. It's not that much different. A billion is like 1,000 million, so 500 billion. That's a lot of stars. A supernova is a situation when one star explodes, and that explosion is brighter than the entire galaxy. It's brighter than the other 500 billion stars. And this is a computer animation of such an explosion. My melody's a code the very next episode. Has my mic often distorted and ready to explode. I keep my mic at Fahrenheit, freeze MCs to make them colder. My listener system is kicking like solar. He's talking about a supernova explosion. That was a hidden code in his rap. See, great rappers are able to do that. Those are the high-level rappers, right? The high-level beat makers are also, they're hidden codes in what they're doing. Oh, what's that? That's not a hidden code. That's wrong. Okay. Another person that was influential on me, I think if Albert Einstein was able to grow a fro, he would have done it, right? Because you can see he was trying to go there. And there's a picture of him there with Paul Robeson. They were very good friends. And Albert Einstein was a very big influence on me. Many people don't know that actually Albert Einstein was a civil rights activist. Big time, right? Now what I want to talk about is some really cool science that is influenced by sound. and music. So when we think about this mic, how a microphone works, there are sound waves, right? This corresponds to vibrations in the air molecule, and the vibrational patterns encode the sound that you eventually hear, and that goes into the mic. There's actually a magnet inside of this mic, and this magnet can vibrate, and it creates an electrical signal that matches the vibration of the sound waves, and that gets what we call transduced or transformed back into a speaker through some interest in electronics. Why am I showing you this? So what follows, so part one of my story is to kind of tell you a little bit of how hip-hop influenced me becoming a scientist, and how there's a lot of science already in hip-hop and in the making of hip-hop music. There's a lot of science already encoded and inspired by hip-hop lyrics, and that also a lot of the great hip-hop artists and the very birth of hip-hop started by the founders of hip-hop really celebrating knowledge, that one of the key elements of hip-hop, the biggest element of hip-hop, is knowledge. You can't be a better rapper without expanding your vocabulary and expanding your skill set. That's knowledge. You can't be a better breakdancer without practicing and acquiring new moves and implementing new ideas from capoeira, from other forms of dance. That's knowledge, right? If you want to be a b-boy and a b-girl and like you want to do fashion, right? That's knowledge. That's the other element of hip-hop. So hip-hop, the ultimate thing is knowledge. And that's from the birth of hip-hop culture. But there's mathematics in hip-hop. So what we're looking at here, right, is geometry. You probably learned about geometry. And I remember when I learned geometry in high school, man, I was falling asleep. I was like, why are they showing me these pictures and these triangles and everything? But if somebody would have told me that the beats that we make have some of the most beautiful geometry and mathematics, I would be, you know, bugging out. So let me just play something. Here's what one of these rhythms sound like. So if you think about this being time, a beat like that you're hearing is made up of these geometric patterns. And so right now, how many of you have heard about something called machine learning or artificial intelligence? People are now using these geometries to have like computers make their own beats. And, right, so we're using now this mathematics and discovered that some of the highest forms of mathematics come from making beats. So I hope that somebody in this room will pursue this very exciting new field in the field that connects mathematics, geometry, and rhythm. This is another idol of mine, John Coltrane. And even Coltrane was playing around with patterns, and this is a hand drawing that John Coltrane had. But he was trying to create his own mathematical systems, geometrical system for his music. So I'm going to skip this for now. So eventually, yeah, I figured a way to keep my music alive in my science. Obviously, I went on to many years throughout my PhD program, after my PhD, now a professor. And I always managed to keep my passion for music connected. And I'm here to tell you and ask you to do the same thing, to consider doing the same thing. Don't let anyone put you in a pigeonhole. You know what I'm saying? When somebody puts you in a box, right? All along in my journey, I always felt, well, you know, am I really a scientist? Am I really a musician? Am I both? Am I confused? But that's part of the story, right? Part of the story is to recognize that we all have something unique about us. Every single one of us. And we should embrace that. And we should be inspired by that. And at the very least, what I'm hoping to get across to y'all is that, yeah, there have been times when people are like, what's this weirdo musician guy that plays the sax coming to tell us a physics talk about? Or this guy is posing to be a jazz musician, but he's really a scientist. That comes with the territory, and I love it. And so even here's a picture of what, I want to make a guess here. I'm going to point out to somebody in this audience and ask you to guess what this picture is of. All right? I'm going to point to somebody. I'm going to look around at some body language. All right. The gentleman in the blue. Right there. Yeah, you. That's right. I want you to guess what picture. What's the, $1 million question. You get a Tesla if you get it right. A what? Stars. He's slick. He's clever. So you knew I'm talking about stars and stuff. Yeah. A brain. That's a good one too. My man said it's a brain. Wait, that's amazing. Like, that's really good. Do you know, okay, we have some more hands up, okay? We're gonna go around. But you gotta speak loudly. Yeah, both of y'all, yeah. All right, okay, can we just, shh. Okay, what's your guess? Okay, observable universe galaxy clusters. Okay, he clearly read something somewhere, didn't you? No, but that's good. That's to be celebrated. All right, good. When I show this picture, I have a friend who is a neuroscientist. He's a neuroscientist at Princeton University. One day we were having lunch and I showed him this picture, and he goes, "That's a nice picture of the brain." So he said he made the same thing. But it's actually not. It's the distribution of all the galaxies in our universe, and it creates a pattern. So this is weird. Every galaxy is made up of about 1 trillion, on the order of 1 trillion stars, right? And they're spiraling around. Then we have another galaxy far away. Then when we zoom out and we look at trillions of galaxies all together, it forms a pattern. And this is very, very large, right? It's zooming out. Right? So that's a pattern that you see. One of the things that physicists are interested in is we want to understand, we love to find patterns. It's like being a good detective. You're looking for patterns. You're looking for a signal in the noise. So what is this pattern? It turns out that it actually is a sound wave. All right? So this blew me away when I first learned this. This was a recent discovery, by the way, that it turns out that the origin of all these galaxies in our universe had to do with a sound wave. That there's some sound wave that creates something like the pattern of all these galaxies. And what we're looking at here is this pattern. This is the pattern that we see. And notice that it's like a wave, just like a wave that ripples in a pond, or a sound wave. And it has this high peak here. Okay, what is this peak? So when you play your radio and you turn the volume, like an equalizer, think about what an equalizer does, right? If you want more bass, to the left, right? You make it higher. If you want more treble, which are the higher frequencies, you make that higher, right? This is like a cosmic equalizer of the sound waves. And it's saying that there's more mid-range in the universe than there is more high-end or low-end frequencies. And somehow the fact that you have this mid-range is giving us information about how the galaxies are distributed in the universe and where they actually come from. And now what we understand is that they come from sound waves in the universe, in early times in the universe. That this is a natural phenomenon. And when I tell my music friends this, they bug out. They just can't. It's amazing to them. So now I end up, hanging out with all these amazing musicians because they want to talk physics with me. See how it works? See how it works out? Okay. So this is actually sound waves that's produced by a flute. You get the different frequencies when the flute plays a given note. And you can see the similarity. Yeah, so 30 years later, after doing all my stuff, I was complaining to a friend of mine in New York. And I said, man, yeah, I finally kind of made it, and I want to do something back in New York, but nobody's doing anything. I'm pissed off. And he said, my brother, pick up the phone. Let me call my friend. This guy's an interesting person. He's a movie maker, and he talks just like that. And he made a movie called Boomerang and House Party. So he knew some of these people behind some museum that they were making. So he picks up the phone. He goes, Rocky, I want you to talk to my friend Stephon. So I'm on the phone with this guy, Rocky. Hi, my name is Rocky Bucano, and I'm the new president of the Universal Hip Hop Museum that we're building in the Bronx, New York. 60,000 square feet. It's intended to be the most modern museum in New York. And we would love to have an education program that relates science to hip hop. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is bananas. Because, ready for this? I know. Wait it. Wait. This is the same Rocky Bucano. Where is it? This is the executive producer of Strong City Studio. It was the same person that built that space that us young people can go hang out with in the 80s. I was on the phone with him. I was like, hey, Rocky, do you remember me? I was one of those kids that would come to the studio. He goes, I don't remember you. There are many kids that came to the studio. But anyway, as a result of that, we have now started this project. It's called the Hip Hop Science Project. And what I want to show you to end my talk now, so we have these two programs that the intention is to bring it to all schools across the United States, including, oh, by the way, you are the first to hear this, by the way. I know, scary movie, huh? Wow. So this is, it'll be great in the future to get everybody out to the museum. It's built in a year, it'll be done in a year. This is a picture of the museum. The museum will be built in a neighborhood that hip hop was invented. And it's a universal hip hop museum, which means that it celebrates hip hop all across the United States, even bounce, even trap, hip hop from all over, right? In all its forms, all right? It's an all-inclusive package. But one of the things was that they created space for the nerds of hip hop. And they allowed us now to make new beats, to make new ideas based on scientific concepts of today. So today, what I'm going to do now is play for you some of these new beats. Because remember I told you that in the early days of hip hop, the music that was made drew from the science and the technology at that time. And when it drew from that science and technology, it transformed the technology. Hip hop artists transformed the technology. They built and created new technology. They weren't simply consumers of the technology. So that's part of your tradition, is to push it forward. And what we're going to talk about now, to end my talk, is something that is home to Louisiana, which is the LIGO telescope. The LIGO telescope was able to hear the faintest sound created by the universe called gravitational waves. The gravitational waves are a ripple in space-time. I'll get back to that beat in a second. We'll get back to that. See, people are getting upset. You don't want to hear about gravitational waves? Come on now. We'll get back to okay. But I want to say something about this. So what we're looking at here are two black holes, right? As they merge into each other, they're distorting the entire space-time fabric of a galaxy, and they create waves, ripples in space-time, and they travel all the way from millions and millions of miles to come to Earth. And where is this? Well, where's my, and it comes to, whoa.
The war in Ukraine.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, there's a slide that I need to get to. Bear with me for 1 second. Yes, there we go. All right, fleeing the thing. All right, so this is a picture of, this is LIGO and Livingston, right down the road, or up the road. And this basically behaves like a microphone. It's essentially a very fancy quantum microphone that can hear the ripples of space-time, the gravitational waves. And what I want to do now is play for you what that sounds like, okay? So this is what the gravitational wave sounds like. No, that's not what it sounds like. I completely got doxxed. Okay. All right, now let's play what it sounds like. So this is actually what it sounds like. This is what these gravitational waves that come from these black holes sound like. All right. So this is what hip hop artists do with this sound when we sample it. So this is produced by a guy named Eli Tubo, who produced an artist called Nas. He's a hip hop producer. Okay. Wait, I hope it's the same one. Okay, and here's another one. So what this is do, it uses, they took the sound waves and they sampled it and made a beat out of it. Okay. It looks like the crew in this corner really like the beat. And it looks like the crew on this side were thinking about all the gravitational wave sounds. People were getting pondering, right? But the point that I just want to make about that is the same way artists use ideas and concepts to make new art, to make new music, is what the future, my prediction is the future of music like hip hop, right, will continue as it did in the past, to use the knowledge, to push the knowledge, to use the science, to use the ideas, to make music and beats that we've never heard of before, that will not just move the crowd, but will move the planet and move the universe. Thank you for your time. I look forward to engaging with you all, and it's great to be here.
So I hope you guys, hello. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. At this point in time, I hope that you were able to actually take some time and ponder and maybe have some inquisitive questions that you would like to ask Dr. Stephon Alexander. So at this time, we're going to pass mics around and allow you guys to ask some questions. This will be question and answer time. And I'm going to pass it on to Jasmine.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I work for LSU and the LL program as well. We're going to have 2 spots for you to come up and ask questions if you have any questions. One of our student workers from Southern University is going to have a mic, and I'm going to have a mic here. And if you have any questions, you can come up or come down and you can ask. Don't be afraid. Come on. All right. To hear everyone's question, we can't be this loud. All right, everybody quiet in 3, 2, and 1. We can't hear their questions if you're talking. All right, guys.
I have a question on what made you get into physics more, and with music. How could you implement that more in a person like you, and like that looks like me? And how did it change your perspective on it later on in life?
Well, yeah, thanks for that. That's a great question. That's a very insightful and thoughtful and actually difficult question. That's a difficult question. I mean, first read my book. The first book, The Jazz of Physics, tells a little bit about that story. Okay? Not that I'm trying to sell my book on you or anything like that. But let me give a short answer to that question. So science and physics, the more you get into it, and when you get into it on your own terms, not necessarily like just out of your own, it is just like how music can be really powerful and beautiful, and like you get pulled into the rabbit hole. It's like that. So the more you learn, the more you thirst and the more you hunger to know about the workings of the universe at whatever level, right? It's also empowering because, oftentimes there's a lot of maybe a feeling that maybe we can't do this, we don't know how, we can't be really good at the sciences because we don't really see a lot of people, maybe even from this part of the country, what have you. There's a lot of that going on, right? A lot of self-doubt that can be there. But I think another amazing thing that it took me many, many years to discover, this is crazy. Have y'all ever heard of something called the Rin Papyrus? Yeah? Yeah? Who knows about it? Tell me about it. Okay. So the Rin Papyrus is a paper, it's a paper that was made in Egypt, right? In the Nile River. You know, I discovered many years later that in Egypt, they were writing down mathematical equations thousands of years before it came on Greece. And they were using the math, actually, for their own purposes. So we use things like math and science, actually, right, to serve our own purposes. It's a tool. And that's kind of the story of hip-hop, right? That hip-hop science is really that hip-hop artists were already, Grandmaster Flash invented scratching and turntablism and the electronics for that, so that he can meet that need, right? So the minute I realized that I can make science my own and not somebody else's, and that you can do that yourself, and that there are lots of opportunities out there, not only in school, but online. You can just ask, you know, do that chat thing, you know, that AI thing, ask any question. So that's a reason. I think that I fell so in love with science and how amazing it is. And it also opened up a lot of doors for me, you know. I feel like I get paid to do my hobby as a scientist. I get paid to travel around the world, give talks, fly in first-class flights, drive. I actually went on a private jet ride to an island off the coast of Africa with a billionaire so that he can talk science with me and this other guy. That was crazy, right? He flew out like 5 scientists to hang out in this private jet to go to Principe Island, this beautiful, it looked like Skull Island from King Kong. It looked just like Skull Island. Just so that he can talk. So science or pursuing any kind of knowledge for your own interests definitely will open doors. But it's also important to realize that it's connected. It's not disconnected from the music that you love and the culture that you're a part of, right? And you should not try to disconnect it. The more you embrace that, the better you become. So I gave you a very long-winded answer because it's a very good question.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to get a question from the other side.
Was it easy for you to become a scientist and a musician at the same time?
Man, y'all are smart out here. That's a great question. So let me just admit something. I'm a much better scientist than I'm a musician, okay? Like I have a friend, his name is Marcus. He's a much better musician than he's a scientist, right? But what I will say is that my music helps me become a better scientist, right? And you ought to expect that no matter what you pursue, right? There's a saying, nothing worth having. Listen to this. Nothing worth having comes easily. Think about something that you really appreciate, right? Chances are you appreciate it because you had to work hard to get it, or you had to do something to get it, right? And so becoming a scientist definitely had its challenges in terms of whatever, learn things or experiencing people thinking that I was a dummy when I walked into the room. Back then I had long dreadlocks. I had dreads before it became a thing, okay? I had dreads back in the 80s. 15 years worth. And, anyway, I don't want to go off on that, but tangent there.
Y'all want to ask questions?
So it comes with challenges. It comes with challenges, but your job is to embrace those challenges because you will appreciate it that much more. And the music definitely helped me become a better scientist.
All right.
Okay, so about that super microphone thingy, how far can it like hear into space? Do we know that? Or is it like can just hear endlessly, like?
Well, that's an amazing question. That's a great question. All right. All right. I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you all here. How long does it take sunlight to get to us? 12 hours. The sun, the light from the sun travels to Earth. Wait. I'm going to ask Professor Gonzalez. I think it's something like 8 to 9 seconds. A few seconds. 8 minutes. Oh, shoot. 8 minutes. Yes, 8 minutes. That's what I'm saying. It takes 8 minutes. 8 minutes. So when you look, wait, here's another question. Seriously. I'll give the person that gets this question right some of my leftover coffee. All right? So that means when you look at sunlight right now, are you looking at that light 8 minutes in the past? Exactly. I'm answering your question, by the way.
Okay.
So a galaxy that's 100 million years away, right? If I see a galaxy now, am I seeing it 100 million years in the past or not?
Yeah.
So when you look at those stars, you're looking at them in the past, right? It turns out that's light. Gravitational waves that LIGO sees are, because you see when light travels, it can go through a fog, for example, and then you can lose the light. In other words, the light could get impeded and you end up not seeing it. Gravitational waves can travel unimpeded. So that means that LIGO is trying to see gravitational waves that actually come as far as back as the Big Bang itself. So we should be able to see a picture of the Big Bang when LIGO actually becomes more advanced. And that's why you should be very lucky to have Dr. Gonzalez as one of your professors here. Okay? So that's a really good question. Gravitational waves can see all the way, the furthest distances possible in the universe.
What happened in Baton Rouge that made you write a book?
Well, the pandemic hit, and my girlfriend's family is from Baton Rouge, so she came down to visit them, and I had to tag along, and I wrote my book here, half of the book. Wait, was that the question? What brought me here? Okay.
This is a question about the black holes. How many light years are there, and how many light wait? My bad, I'm kind of nervous.
Don't worry, so am I.
How many light years away is the black holes? How many galaxies can it consume per second? And how strong is it?
Very good. That's a very involved questions. So let me say that there are different types of black holes, but that are characterized by size. We actually have black holes that could be as tiny as like an atom. They're called, right, microscopic quantum black holes. Then we could have black holes that are made up of the weight of billions of stars. These are called supermassive black holes, and they are very hungry and they will gobble anything up in its way. But the thing that's weird is that there's a supermassive black hole right at the center of our own galaxy, and it seems to be a friendly black hole. I mean, every once in a while it gobbles up a screaming star, but it sits happily at the center of our galaxy and it doesn't gobble us up. And it's a bit of a mystery why that is.
What do you think of the current New York Bronx drill scene? Like drill music and stuff.
The current New York, say it again, Bronx, what?
The current New York Bronx drill music.
I think it's really cool.
Do you think that they have, like, they carry the same type of being able to use the lyrics the way that they did before in the like 1980s and stuff?
Yeah, I think, if you look at like trap music, when I think about trap music, like, and the beats, they reminded me of the old school beats. Like they're starting to use the 808, for example. I mean, the 808, the Roland 808 was like used back in the 80s, right? It's good to see that that's the key thing that's still being used, right?
That's all for now.
All right, well, it sounds like that you're an artist, and you're trying to take it to the next level. Keep at it. Any more questions?
You go. What type of advice you'd give to somebody who's trying to be like you? Like, what?
Did you hear?
Well, you can. Well, first of all, I would not say to try to be.
Well, not like you,
yeah,
but like
to be. Yeah, I would say follow your own agenda. I was not like the star student. Okay. I was not the person that, but I was passionate. Right. So, you know what follow your own agenda means, by the way? Follow your own agenda means that it's sometimes the case where we can compare ourselves to other people. If some people are doing really well and you're not doing well, then you're like, well, maybe I'm not as good. I was not, following, just understanding that we all have our own process. We all learn at different rates, right? We all can learn things better. We have our strengths. So I would say that for me, once I realized what my passion was, which was science and physics, there was a time I wanted to become a biologist, and I realized that working with test tubes was not fun for me, but I had friends that liked working with test tubes. I became a theorist because I could sit at a cafe and like, only with a pen and a paper, like, come up with ideas, right? So you have to find the thing that resonates with you. That's the first thing. And then don't let anything stop you. Don't let what other people say stop you. Follow your own agenda. Any more questions?
Who motivated you or experienced you to start studying physics?
Well, I had a high school teacher. And I gave a TED talk about this high school teacher. Hi. So I had a high school teacher in the Bronx who was also a musician, and he was a physics teacher. So he was a person that got me interested in both connecting my music to my physics.
Yeah, I have a question. Okay, so if you had to give advice to someone who wants to aspire to be someone like you, like business advice-wise, what would you say to that person?
I would say, while you are doing the stuff that you're doing in the classroom, I will challenge that person to go online and think of the biggest question that you have in your head that you want to know the answer to, and do your own research on it. And then develop questions from that, and then write a professor somewhere an email, find their email online and say, I have a question, and write them that question. And you could write me that question.
Excuse me, I'm right here.
What's up?
So here's one little question. I was saying, like, did you ever make like a playlist or album that we could listen to right quick?
Yes, I did.
We can listen to it right quick?
Yes, I do. But I need to update it.
Oh, okay. What is it?
He said he needs to update it.
Oh, okay. That's all.
Oh, thank you. You know what's crazy about that too? I have a playlist that's from many, many years ago, right? And that playlist list before I had Afro beats in it. And it's amazing that that's what everybody's listening to. That's part of it, right? So it goes to show you that old people know something too. Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, do you know if black holes are able to die or not?
Are able to what?
If black holes are able to die, like if their life can end.
Yes, a very good question. If you wait long enough, a black hole actually does, you know how water can evaporate? When it heats up, it can evaporate and turn into steam.
Yeah.
Turns out black holes will eventually do that as well. But it's very weird because we don't understand really what it evaporates into and why it should do that to begin with, because it seems to violate some of the fundamental laws of physics, and that is still something that we don't know the answer to. And by the way, let me say, thanks for asking that question. You know, when I talked about all the science stuff, what if I was to tell you that there's a lot we do not know, okay, in science? And so it's up to y'all, the next generation, right, to take us to that next level, right? Crucially important. So for example, somebody maybe in this room will figure out how to really make solar energy work really well, how to make nuclear fusion work in a clean way so we don't have to rely on oil anymore. It's amazing. You can power the entire city in New York with a drop of water, right? So anyway, I want to make sure that you understand that even some of the things I talked about here are still very mysterious, and that's why scientists have jobs. Any more questions?
Excuse me. How many galaxies are there?
How many what?
Galaxies.
How many galaxies are there? Well, I mean, the Sloan Digital, there's a survey, there's a telescope that's taken a picture of about 1 billion galaxies. But we believe that there are trillions and trillions of galaxies out there. This is great. I mean, this is amazing that I'm getting so many questions. That says a lot about your school system. Kudos to the teachers in the room. This is great. Are we done?
We have just one more thing before Professor Alexander leaves, and Vernita is going to do it, but you still have to help us.
So we're at the portion of the program where we're going to raffle off a signed book by Dr. Alexander to some of the teachers. So for the teachers who actually put in for the raffle, and I'm going to ask for Dr. Alexander to give me the honors of pulling for signed copies of his book. And let me grab the book. Can you grab the book? We have 4 signed copies of his book, Jazz of Physics, and we're going to pull.
Do I call a name?
Yes.
Okay. I can't read this, I'm just kidding. So, Karen Gill. All right, okay. North Iberville High, Brandon Nora. From West St. John High School, Dr. Paula T. Johnson. Okay. She will. Is Dr. Johnson. How many books we got?
That's it. We're going to the rest of it. No, one more. That's it.
One more? Mm-hmm. And for the final, can we get a drum roll? Okay. Stephon Alexander. No, just Tammy Hillard. Whoa, 2 in a row there. I don't know, it's a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy.
Okay. All right, did you guys enjoy this program? All right. So we've now come to the end of our program. And the staff of LOPAD hope that you enjoyed today's program. Now for this program, it took many entities to come together to make this program a success. And I would like to take the time out at this time to give special thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Stephon Alexander. I would also like to thank the staff of LOPAD, the LSU Physics and Astronomy Department, LIGO Livingston, the Southern University Docent Program, and I would also like to give special recognition to our sponsor, who helped to fund and support our program and allow us to be able to do programs like this for schools across the state of Louisiana, and that is the Patrick F. Taylor Foundation. The LOPAD offers free virtual and in-person classroom and LOPAD offers free virtual and in-person physics demos and other activities. If you would like for us to provide our free services for your classroom, your school, community events, visit us at our website by scanning the QR code that is available here. Once again, we thank you for coming out. We hope that you enjoyed the program, and we hope to see you at many more of our programs. Thank you. As you're leaving, you'll receive a sticker. As you're leaving, you'll be receiving a sticker from our LIGO docents, so please leave in a uniform line.